between the nations, and shall decide for many peoples.
Yes, Baha'u'llah's universal house of justice is that all the nations will simultaneously disarm, and they will settle their differences and their boundaries around a council table. And they will, after setting the boundaries, and they make a covenant among themselves of peace. And they will elect, first they will set up secondary houses of justice in all these nations, and then these will elect the universal house of justice. And the guardian, or the Davidic kingship, will be his president. Okay?
And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation.
Yes, this is the purpose of the coming of Baha'u'llah, is to set up this universal house of justice on top of Mount Carmel, and for all the nations to flow into it. I mean, all the nations will become members of it. But this won't take place until after the catastrophe, which is upon us. And the things that are going on in the world are leading right up to this great catastrophe. Following this, 4 countries, the United States, England, France, and Russia, will become the first Baha'i states. And they will set up an international tribunal, or world court. And this will be an interim between this house of justice that is talking about here and what we have now. Other nations will come into this as they become, majority of the people become Baha'i. And by the end of the century, everybody in the world will be Baha'i. And this house on the top of the mountain, with these one that's on the top of the mountain here, all the nations will belong to that. And we will have 1,000 years of peace. Now we turn to the 9th chapter of Isaiah. We start with the 6th verse.
For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.
The Christians, during the Christmas, at the nativity scene, they usually have a sign over the nativity scene that says, "Unto us a child is born." They're referring to this, what we've just read here. They attribute this to Jesus Christ. Well, we have to agree that Jesus was born. He didn't come down out of the sky. He was born, just like you and I. This is as far as it refers to Jesus, because it says here that the government would be upon his shoulders. And Jesus was a carpenter's son. And certainly the government was not upon his shoulders. The only thing he said about government, given unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and given to God the things that are God's. Also, he says his name would be called the Wonderful, the Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. The only thing that Jesus said about peace was that he didn't come to bring peace. But he didn't say anything else about peace. That's the only thing he said about peace is that he didn't come to bring peace but a sword. And if he said that he was the Prince of Peace, he would have been the biggest failure of all history, because we've had nothing but war from ever since Jesus until our present time. So he definitely was not the Prince of Peace, and he didn't claim to be the Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. He claimed to be the Son, the Everlasting Son. But he did tell us in Mark 8:38 that who's ever ashamed of him and his word in his day, that the Son of Man, when he comes in the glory of the Father, would be ashamed of them. And here he's referring to Baha'u'llah, who is the glory of the Father, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And of course they say the Mighty God, that each of the manifestations reflect God, as a mirror reflects the sun. But Baha'u'llah reflects God in the glory of God, in the glory of the Father. And therefore we have a greater concept of God through Baha'u'llah than any of the rest of them. And the reason for that is that this age, the people's comprehension is much greater than of all the past history. So Jesus said, I have many things to tell you, but you can't bear to hear them now, but when Baha'u'llah comes, he will guide you into all truth. And Baha'u'llah has come and guided us into this truth. All right, now you want to read on?
Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it, with justice and with righteousness, from this time forth and forevermore.
Okay. Here it says here, of the increase of his government and peace there would be no end. Certainly there was no peace during Jesus, but Baha'u'llah's peace, when it's established, there will be no end of it. And the increase of his government, Baha'u'llah's government will include all the peoples of the world will come under it. And all the people will be Baha'is and we have this. But the main thing that it says here, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom. That is, God is going to rule from the throne of David. God don't talk to us in a large voice in the sky. He doesn't have a megaphone and shout down to us. He always talks to us through a manifestation, a person. And God has chosen to look over his kingdom, a kingship that he set up way long time ago at the time of King David. And he's told David in his covenant that his kingdom would last forever. He also told Nathan, one of his sons, that is the Holy Spirit told Nathan, that David's kingdom would exist forever. Also, it's the same thing to Solomon, that this kingdom would last forever. This is found in the Psalms and other places in the Bible. So this throne has existed down to the present time, but now it's going to be over all the peoples of the world. It'll be the head of the universal house of justice. And he says, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice, meaning the house of justice, and with righteousness, from this time forth and forevermore. That is, for as long as there's life upon this planet, this kingdom will be over the people, and we'll have peace. Now let us turn to the 11th chapter of Isaiah, and I want you to read it from the King James, starting with the first verse.
And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots.
Okay, now it's going to come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse. What is the stem of Jesse? Have any idea? It's his penis. Anybody know who Jesse is?
Father of David.
He's the father of David, that's right. And out of the father of David is going to come David. And it says there's going to be a rod. The rod is the scepter that a king holds in his hand. This son of Jesse that comes from the sperm of Jesse is King David. And this kingship is the kingship that lasts forever that we just got through in this last other verse. So he says, come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse.